person who has seriously examined what is wrong with our healthcare system knows that its reliance on private for-profit insurance to pay for our healthcare costs is the single most fundamental flaw in the system. That is the factor that is driving costs through the roof and making healthcare inaccessible to tens of millions of Americans, both the uninsured and the nominally insured. Poll after poll, as Representative Kucinich pointed out, 60%, some show even higher support for a single-payer option in America, because they know that a publicly funded, publicly accountable system is the only policy that addresses the cause of the problem. At his July 23rd press conference, even President Obama acknowledged that a single-payer system is the only way to achieve universal health care, although he then attempted to assert that his patchwork plan would cover almost everyone via the use of mandates. Even though the experience of Massachusetts already proves that mandates don't work, and even though the very idea of penalizing people for failing to further enrich the private insurance profiteers is not social progress, it is an obscenity. And yet, despite all of this, despite the overwhelming evidence favoring single-payer as the only real solution, including the superior performance of single-payer systems coming from every other industrialized nation in the world, the starting point in Congress was that single-payer was not politically feasible. Therefore, we have to have some kind of compromise, hybrid, patchwork plan that somehow can keep the private insurance companies, the profiteering HMOs, the big pharmaceutical corporations, and their allies all happy, and yet somehow be better than the existing system. Yes. This so-called reform carries within it the seeds of reaction. In light of this, I would like to suggest to you three very important political lessons. First, let's be very clear what we are up against. We are not simply fighting ignorance and distortions and disinformation, although we are doing that. We are not simply fighting misguided politicians. The only reason they declare a policy supported by the majority to somehow be politically unfeasible is because of the greater influence of campaign money. And let us speak plainly about this truth that we all know is the truth. The fight for single payer is just one front in a larger fight against a much larger problem: the corporate domination of our political system and the power of big money buying political influence and political results. The peace movement, the environmental movement, the movements for labor, economic opportunity, civil rights, and social justice are other fronts fighting the same basic enemy. So when we hear people say that our healthcare system is broken, remember that's not entirely true. It's broken for us, but for its architects and beneficiaries, it is working all too well. Health insurance and the drug industry are among the most profitable industries in the nation and are among the most shameless examples of unbridled corporate greed in the United States. The only thing that health insurance truly insures is shareholder profits, and HMO stands for hand the money over. And these forces aren't yielding an inch. Their recent activities remind me of the old adage that a tiger will defend the tip of its whiskers just as fiercely as it will defend its vitals. If these forces get behind any so-called reform, watch your pocketbooks. Second political lesson: we have to look at single payer as a non-negotiable demand that cannot be compromised. half measures will not work. They will not address the fundamental problem caused by the profiteers and by the inherently tremendous costs imposed on healthcare providers and having to deal with 1,200 different insurers, each with its own set of rules for what is covered and what is not covered, which doctors may be seen and which may not, varying co-payments, referral networks, approval requirements, appeal procedures, etc., that is driving healthcare providers crazy. And the third political lesson I'd like to leave you with today is that only a concerted and persistent campaign of political action based on this uncompromising principled position can overcome the power of big money and achieve results. Make it clear in 2009 that you will not support any congressional candidate in 2010 who does not support House Resolution 676 and the Kucinich Amendment to the current bill. Make it clear, and when we organize, we have to confront incumbents and candidates alike, that you will not support any candidate for state office in Illinois who does not support House Bill 311, the Illinois single-payer bill. This is the kind of activism that is what is bringing House Resolution 676 and House Bill 311 to the fore. This is the kind of thing that we have to have. This is the kind of thing that we saw in Washington. I hope many of you saw it when members of Physicians for a National Health Program got up and right in the committee and made themselves be heard. Some of them even got arrested. And while I understand Congressman Kucinich talking about the current tactics that he believes have to be employed, let's not forget that it is that kind of activism, people sacrificing their own freedom, literally, having to go to jail for this new civil rights movement that he's referring to, and I believe it is exactly that. That is the kind of activism that has brought House Resolution 676 to the fore and to the floor for a vote. So let's recognize what these activists have done. And let us remember, especially now, in taking that message to the people, that single payer is not simply a necessary healthcare policy, it is a necessary economic policy. It is a stimulus package in its own right. Why? Because healthier people are more productive, but especially because businesses and workers currently struggling to pay for skyrocketing and substandard private insurance now would be relieved of that burden. While of course tax revenue would be needed to pay for a single payer system, that burden can and must be shouldered in a progressive fashion. And the inherently greater efficiency of a single-payer system would soon translate into lower costs overall, not simply because it's more efficient, but because of a lot of other things. Being able to drive down the cost of prescription drugs, the fact that it will be much easier to resolve workers' comp and auto accident claims and medical malpractice claims, as Congressman Kucinich pointed out. Healthier workers with more disposable income in their pockets equals a healthier economy. This is an economic issue. We have fact, truth, and logic on our side. We have the majority of the people on our side, despite all of the media attacks on the boogeyman of government-run healthcare. We have the pocketbook issues on our side. We have the courage of our convictions. The only thing we still need to acquire is the determined political will and unyielding activism that will allow us to reach critical mass and put into government the representatives who will truly represent the people. And even that is coming into place as we see here today. Stay the course, build the movement, and we will get there. Thank you very much.